A warm greetings to one and all. In this session, let's learn about user-defined exception handling in C++. Topics to be covered in this session are introduction to user-defined exception, steps involved in user-defined exception, and finally, let's check out an example program. User-defined exception is created by the programmer to handle specific error conditions in their code. It is achieved by inheriting and overriding exception class functionality. Steps involved are defining a custom exception class, throwing instance of that class whenever necessary, and catching and handling those exceptions as appropriate in the code given. User-defined exception provides error handling for situations which are unique to the application or domain. It also enhances the code readability and maintainability. Steps involved in user-defined exceptions are define your exception class. So defining a new class to represent your custom exception is being done as a first step. So this class inherits a standard exception class or one of its derived classes like runtime error or logical error. The second step is customize your exception. So here, within your custom exception class, the necessary attributes, methods to be provide additional information about the error can be added. So this may include some error messages, error codes, or even some other relevant data. The next step is throwing your custom exception. So whenever a situation that warrants throwing your custom exception, you can use the throw keyword followed by an instance of your custom exception class. The final step is to handling your custom exception. So you can catch your custom exception using try block and handle it appropriately in the corresponding catch block. Now let's have an example program. So here we have a simple example program that takes two numbers from the user and performs a division operation. But what happens if user enters 0 as denominator? Yes, that's where exception handling comes into play here. So first let me explain the code and then we can see how the code gets executed. So here the header files for IO operations, that is hash include IO stream, and the header files for exception, that is hash include exception, are included first. Using namespace std, it allows us to use std library functions and objects without explicitly specifying the std scope resolution operator as a namespace prefix. So the next is class sample colon public exception. So here we have defined the user defined exception class named sample, which is derived from the class standard exception. So inside the class, we have overridden the what function from the base class exception. So it returns a pointer to a constant character message as divide by 0 exception. So here, what is a virtual function declared in exception class? So next, constant means that it does not modify the state of the object. Next, throw specifies that it indicates that it is a function that does not throw any exception itself. So next comes the main program. So inside the main program, we have try block, and here we have declared the variables a and b of integer data type. And using cout statement, we have displayed the message enter two numbers to the user. Using cin statement, we have obtained the value for the variables a and b from the users. So next we have an if condition. So if the value of the variable b is equal to 0, we have created the object t for the class sample. Then we have thrown the object t. So since the object G is thrown inside the try block, so it is being cached in the catch block. So here the catch block has the object reference as the parameter. So the object D is being cached here, and using the out statement, E dot what function is being executed here. So if B is not equal to 0, then in else part, using the out statement, we have displayed the message A by B equal to, the message is being displayed to the user, and then the value of A by B is displayed to the user in the output part. So this is the explanation for the example program. Now let's see the execution of the code. We all know that the execution starts from the main function. So first we have declared the try block. So inside the try block, we have declared the variables A and B of integer data type. Using cout statement, we have displayed the message enter two numbers to the user as shown in the output. Using cin statement, we have obtained the value of the variable A and B from the user. User has given the value 12 for the variable A and value 0 for the variable B. So next, we have if statement to check the denominator value is equal to 0. If denominator value is equal to 0, we know that an exception will be arise. To avoid it, we are handling this code inside this try block. Yes, if B is equal to 0, object D is being created for the class sample. Using throw keyword, object D is thrown to the catch block from the try block. Yes, now the control moves to the catch block. Catch block receives the object D and executes the cout statement, which initializes the e.whatUp function. So now control moves to the class sample since the object D belongs to the class sample. So in class sample, it executes the what function and returns the message as divide by 0 exception to the user as shown in the output. Then control moves to the main function. It executes return 0 statement, which specifies the successful execution of the code. Let's have another example here. So as we have learned earlier, inside the main function, we have try block and declare the variables A and B of integer data type. And using cout statement, we have displayed the message enter two numbers to the user as shown in the output. So next, using cin statement, we have obtained the values of the variable A and B from the user. User has given the value 10 for the variable A and 5 for the variable B. So next we have if statement. It is to check the denominator value is equal to 0. If denominator value is equal to 0, we know that an exception will be arised. So to avoid it, we are handling this code inside the try block. Yes, now let's check whether the value of the variable b is equal to 0 or not. B is not equal to 0 here. Since the denominator value is not equal to 0, exception is not arise. So we are moving to the else part of the code. And we are executing this out statement by displaying the message A divided by B as shown in the output. And we are executing the expression A divided by B. That is 10 divided by 5 is equal to 2, which is displayed to the user as shown in the output. Catch block is not executed since the object is not thrown inside the try block. Exception object is not thrown inside the try block. So now the control moves to the next statement, that is return 0. Return 0 statement specifies the successful execution of the code. So hope you are clear and user-defined exception handling with this example program. Thank you all.